Department of Child Protection, they're responsible for the death of many of our children, many of our adults. They're responsible for the hurt, the animosity, the tension, and so many other feelings that come with having a child removed. A child being removed from the hospital, never being able to nurture their mother, never being able to bond with their mother in ways that should, because of these unfair laws, the power imbalances and so forth that continuously exist in Western Australia, but indeed right across the country. A mother who takes 4 children to school comes back and only there are 3. Why? Because the department has gone into the school and taken the other without any notice whatsoever. The reunifications with the families where the child is taken, it's very mediocre. And it is the saddest thing when you hear family after family after family speak about the atrocities that have been inflicted upon them as a result of these people here. Department of Child Protection. And Simone is right. They do have blood on their hands. They have blood on their hands, and there clearly is that power imbalance. And the way that they hurt and control and oppress our people has to stop. But it's not going to stop unless we come together as one and fight this system that continues to hurt and oppress us. I think about the little 10-year-old boy who hadn't seen his mum and dad in ways together for at least 7 months. Together had he not seen his mum and dad for 7 months. And the only time that the family, the mum and dad, got to see their little boy together was in a mortuary. In 7 months, in a mortuary. That's when they've seen their boy together. A lifeless little person. And then there was all these laws that we can't say name, we can't show photos and so forth. People these days, if they've been in care, they can't say what the child's name is and it can't be carried in the media. So the laws in Western Australia and indeed right across the country very much prohibit that. Whilst we may be small in numbers here at the moment, just remember this. Banksia Hill was small in numbers when we first started. And then it became the education and people were speaking one by one by one by one. I remember a sister-in-law. She turned around and she had children that went up to school. She made their lunches and then she got told, your children are being taken. She rushed up to the school and the kids were gone. And then there's this poverty narrative which the state government, Premier Roger Cook, chooses. He chooses not to address homelessness because a lot of our families don't have homes. So therefore, if they don't have homes, where can they take their children to? Some of our families are waiting 5 years, 10 years, 15 years just for a house. And heaven forbid if you go into prison because that even makes it a little bit more difficult. We now all know that in Western Australia there are 21,000 wait lists with Department of Housing in terms of applications, meaning that there are 49,000 people are homeless or houseless. But in terms of the rallies that we've had right across this country, we've done so much in relation to incarceration. The black deaths in custody in terms of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody. In terms of suicides, we are yet to do a proper rally right across the country in relation to that. But child removals, they have to be taken to task. The way that they continue to hurt our families and leave them in tears. The way that mothers go into a meeting and they don't have the proper advocacy. So therefore there is that power imbalance. And too bad if you have some other organisation that goes in to try and advocate, they're not going to advocate in ways that should because they're getting paid by these people in here. So that questions the fact about autonomy, and that doesn't exist in that respect. So we know right across the nation, and we have a look at the closing the gap targets. And the closing the gap targets are worsening in relation to incarceration, child removals, and also suicides. We know that it's the worst in the country and the worst in the world for incarceration and also suicide. In terms of child removals, that's on par with some of the other countries in the world. That's nothing to be proud of. We know that Australia is a very rich country, but in terms of our people, we are begging for our children back. I think about one little boy who was taken in the Department of Child Protection care. one little fella. And then shortly thereafter, his older brother took his life. And then I think about this little one going into Banksy Hill Detention Centre. And then during that time when he was there, he was sent off to one of the hospitals because they bent his leg so far back that they twisted his ankle to the point where he had to come back on crutches. And then I said to Paul Papalia, do you know where this little fella is now after hearing his story on 6PR? He said, no. I said, he is waiting to be buried in Katanning. He has taken his life. This is a torment that's ripping through our nation, ripping through our Noongar community, ripping through our community in Western Australia. And these people in here, they have a lot to answer for. So this is only the first of a series of rallies, because it has to happen. Alongside of that, the media needs to come on board. More families need to come out, like back in the 90s, like back in the 2000s, because this impacts on us all. There should be thousands of people out and marching up to Parliament House and say, no, we're not going to accept this. Because if we accept this, that means that we're accepting potentially the hurt inflicted upon another child, the hurts inflicted on another family, and sadly, in many, the death of one of our loved ones. We are born into a poverty narrative. We know that for a fact. Many of our people don't have much. They walk into Homes West houses. We live in on Centrelink and so forth, and that's the truth of the matter. But that's black, white and brown. But is taking children away acceptable? Is going to a meeting with a Department of Child Protection caseworker, and in many cases, some families have more than 20 workers, so that ensures that there's no consistency whatsoever, and the family gets really upset because they have to tell their story time and time again. Are we sick of going into some of these places when you're an elderly male and you only have young females fresh out of university to speak to, who lack the cultural consideration and lack the cultural understanding and knowledge about how best to work with our families? We know that Department of Child Protection is a business, and it's a business right across the country. We've gone to an $8 billion business right across the country in relation to child protection and its counterparts. Back in the 80s and the 90s, it was more about support. But now we've gone to a place where it's only 17% of that spend is spent in terms of providing support to the family. There's been cases where families have spoken about Department of Child Protection walking into their house, going into all the rooms, going into the fridges, going into the cupboards and so forth. It is about surveillance. Surveillance is what's happening with our people right now. There's meant to be more love and respect in that relationship, but there's not. But the way that I see it now, and I've heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families hurt, cry, feel powerless, feel like there's so much systemic so much systemic hurt. It is cruel. And if we don't turn around and fight back against this system, against this department, and make sure that these politicians know that we are not going anywhere, nothing sadly will change. Therefore, we need to show up and we need to turn up and we need to make sure that the voices of the people be made and be heard. I can go on about the stories in relation to this pretty place in here and department, but right now we are just a number. You hear about the children that have gone into these places, one after the next, to resi care, and sexual abuse being inflicted upon these children, and the floggings being inflicted upon these children, and the bashings that are being inflicted upon these children, and the fact that a lot of these children, they're told lies about why their mother can't see them because of this place, because of these people. So this is something that hurts, and it goes to their core in terms of what's happening. We're already impacted by the stolen generation, and we know that in terms of history is still young in this country. But we look at child removals in terms of stolen generation, it hasn't gotten better. In fact, it's been morphed into the term today in terms of child removals. How can we go from 2,000, 8,000, now 23,000 black kids in care since 1997? It is absolutely atrocious. And I have no hesitation, of course, with the families to speak out and tell our truth in terms of what harm this department are doing. And these workers need to have a bit more compassion. And in terms of some of our own Aboriginal people, and I love our families and I love our people so much, but they cannot sell our people out. Justice doesn't just come in relation to incarceration or what's happening with our dear souls in terms of suicides, and we know suicides is just out of control right across this country. And this is where we need to tackle not only the state governments, but also the Commonwealth that say, no, we're not going to accept this. We can't accept any more death. And we cannot do it without the pure and utter fight. Our people of the 80s and the 90s, they fought with truth and conviction. They hit them streets, and this is exactly what we have to continue to do. Because right now, this week is about Reconciliation Week. Reconciliation Week. Reconciliation, that's a term of the 80s and the 90s. Yet our children are being removed at rates like never seen before. Our people are being locked up at rates never seen before. Suicides are rate never seen before. What is to celebrate in terms of reconciliation? And then Roger Cook wants to run off to a breakfast this morning, which to me is tokenistic, because the reality is, in terms of our people, everything is getting worse. There is a division, and I'll be honest about it, between the haves and the have-nots. Too many people want to dance to the tune of the oppressor. Well, no, we can't keep doing that. We have to dance to the tune of the oppressed. We need to tell our truth. I don't want to keep hearing about reconciliation. I want to hear about truth. I want to hear about justice. Reconciliation is a buzzword that means nothing, and it lets the government off from their true responsibilities. And that is saving lives, improving life circumstances, and ensuring that every single person are living their best lives. Thank you.